Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Well, I don't have to tell you what your parents told you back in the day, and it still holds true. You have to eat right. You have to eat healthy. And that's for everything. Physically, mentally, your well-being, it's all there. The challenge is, what are you supposed to eat? Especially in our society today, where the foods that we grab and go because we're so busy aren't good for you. They're overprocessed. A lot of garbage going on in there. Have you ever thought about how that affects you mentally? We're going to look at that today and a lot more. He is somebody who offers many different types of therapy, many different forms of psychiatry. That's why we're talking about this today, because it's so important. A lot of people don't talk about the psychology behind food. Dr. David Lifschutz is back with us. How are you today?
I'm great. Great. Good to see you, Steve.
You too. Yeah, I've wrestled with this for the last year and change as I try to change my eating habits. Just better food. But then once you start going down this rabbit hole, you start realizing what's out there is so not good for you in terms of how food is processed, pesticides. Yeah, you go into the supermarket, you make that left because it's usually on the left, and then you start produce. I want our fruits, vegetables. Wonderful, except it's loaded with pesticides. The state of food today, why don't we start there? What's your overall thoughts?
My overall thought is we're being poisoned by sugar. Sugar. And I just listened to, there's a wonderful woman biochemist, and she has a book under glucose. I don't remember the name of the book. She's French, but it's not the glucose queen, but she's glucose something like that. And I'm sorry, I don't remember. But anyway, the problem is that about, 100 years, that's not 100 years ago, maybe 40 or 50 years ago, a couple of scientists from Harvard came out with a paper showing that animal fat is very good for you and sugar is poison. And the people who were on top of the food industry found out about their paper and paid them what then might have been $50,000 a piece to change the paper and say that carbohydrates and sugar was good for you, but animal fats were bad for you. And then we had a pandemic of heart attacks.
It's amazing how, when this stuff gets out, how we react to it. So, to your point, there was the word fat. It's essential in your diet, but that word got out there in a negative marketing form. So it's like, oh, no, low fat, low fat, low fat. Same thing with eggs. Eggs are bad for you. Cholesterol. You
need cholesterol to make hormones.
Right.
And if you don't have, genetically high cholesterol where it's too high, and also you can't go by just the total cholesterol on the blood test, because that means nothing. It's the kind of cholesterol. And some cholesterol are big fluffy molecules that sail through your arteries without a problem. Another kind of cholesterol is small, tiny, dense particles, and they get inside the lining of your arteries and cause arteriosclerosis. That's bad for you. But you got to know which one is high and which one's low. Also, what's very important is that now animal fat is good for you. Sugar, and for example, eating a sugar breakfast or cereals with lots of sugar, or even with carbohydrates, are terrible for you because carbohydrates immediately turn into sugar. And sugar in your body, when you caramelize something in the kitchen,
sure,
or you cook a chicken and it turns brown,
yeah,
you have too much glucose. That's what it does to the cells in your body. And when they turn brown is when they die. And when you age, that's one of the things that happens to your cells. So just a brief thing, for example, if you eat sugar for breakfast, you're better off eating protein for breakfast and no carbs, or just a little bit. Because when you eat sugar for breakfast, it all of a sudden, even cereals, they say are health cereals, if they have carbohydrates in them, you get a glucose spike in your bloodstream. And then you get insulin pouring out. The pancreas says, oh my God, we got to deal with this sugar because there's too much. It can't go in the liver because it's overloaded already. So then what happens is the insulin pours out, the sugar goes down, and then it goes down so low you start to feel hungry again in an hour. So you need another snack. And what do you go for? Sugar, because you always want a sweet snack. And then the insulin pours out again. After you get a glucose spike, the insulin pours out to drop it down, and then you feel hungry again. Whereas if you eat a protein breakfast, it could be eggs, it could be bacon without sugar, it could be meat, and then you're fine. You can be good for 4 hours. Also, no juices, because juices are pure sugar. When you eat an orange, there's a lot of fiber in there, and that slows down the absorption. But when you eat juice, it's pure sugar, and you get a glucose spike. Also, a lot of our fruits now are all genetically bred to be sweeter because they want to sell more. And the food industry is poisoning us by putting sugar in everything so we can sell more and make more money. At whose expense? Ours. I just had a patient talk to a patient this morning.
David, you're crushing. You're crushing me here. I was not aware that genetically they're changing what we're eating.
Look at blueberries. Look how big they are now. When you were a kid, did you see blueberries that fat and sweet?
There's even a separate container of blueberries. I just saw this at the grocery store where they tote, look, big fat, these are the big fat blueberries, twice the size of the other blueberries. And I just thought, well, I guess that they found, certain type of trees that have them. It's wow.
Genetically bred, so they have more sugar in them. So you'll buy more. Blueberries are wonderful for you. They really are. Oh. But you can't eat too many of them because it's too much. You don't want too much sugar. And what's going on is once they found that they could make sugar and manufacture it, and they found they could put it in food, it's over-processed foods. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube about it where you can learn a lot about it. There's another scientist wrote a book called Metabolical. Another great book put out by a Harvard psychiatrist is Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. I just started to tell you about a patient of mine who I told about changing their diet, not eating too much sugar and eating mostly protein and even getting like a ketone diet. That's very popular these days. And he said his head, after 3 days of not eating any carbohydrates or keeping your carbohydrates down to maybe not more than 20 milligrams a day, his head was clearer. He felt better.
Wow.
He could think more clearly. And he's an investment banker, this guy. So he needs to think clearly. Well, we all need to think clearly. Wow. But if you cut down your carbohydrates, that's the way to lose weight, painlessly, generally. And you also find out, I did it myself, and I found out I wasn't hungry this morning for breakfast, I had a hamburger, just the meat and 3 eggs. You'll say, oh my God, that's too many eggs. No, it's fine. You can have up to, I think, 60% of your weight in milligrams of protein a day. It's probably more than that.
I want to, on the protein thing, I've been on the protein bandwagon for decades. Friends have made fun of me. I have one friend right now that, we'll go out to eat. Oh, make sure you get enough protein. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And for breakfast, then I rotate it, but I have 3 to 4 turkey meatballs.
That's great.
And I can eat it every day because I never get tired of it. A little dollop, if you will, of marinara sauce, tiny bit, and half an English muffin because I feel that I should get some carbs there. But based on what you're saying,
you can leave them out.
You can leave them out. Yeah. I don't want, the thing that challenges me, and I want your feedback, and I know it probably challenges others. Without enough carbs, a headache. You'll get a headache, and maybe you just have to get over the hump.
Well, if you're going to go totally no carbs and no sugar, then you should get something called Keto Mojo is a website, keto-mojo, and you can get a thing that helps you test your system for ketones and glucose. Oh. But it's good to have, if you're not going to go totally ketone, then you have 20, not 20, more than 20 milligrams of carbohydrates a day. But you'll find if like you have protein in the morning, a savory breakfast, you will be good for 4 hours and not be hungry at all. After my breakfast this morning, I'm still not hungry. I ate at 6 o'clock.
Wow.
1 o'clock.
Yeah.
You could also Dr. Boz is another person if you're interested in learning about ketone diets. B-O-Z. She's a lovely internist who's very smart and tells you about the safety involved. There are other people, but you can learn about this, and it's very important. The book I just told you about, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind, is a wonderful book because it's talks about the safety involved. It talks about how a lot of people get sick from eating overproduced foods with too much sugar in them, and God knows what else they put in them. A lot of people recommend, if you're looking at what's in an object in the supermarket, if you see a word you don't understand, don't buy it. It may well be sugar. And,
even to your point here, I started artificial sweetener. I don't put any sweeteners in anything. I don't even use salt. Stevia. So natural. Stevia is
great.
However,
there's one kind of stevia you should get because some of the others have sugar in it.
Thank you for saying that. That's where I was going with that.
Stevia in the raw. Stevia in the raw is the one I know that has no added sugar in it.
Okay, because this is what I was thinking. Oh, add a little sweetness with my decaf coffee there at the convenience store. Let me use the stevia. And then I'm thinking, it's all good, except it's not created equally. If you look at it, it's got stevia and some other rose, so dextrose or something.
The oses are sugars.
Yeah.
And also, you should know that in fruits, what makes it sweet is fructose. So fruits have a molecule called sucrose, but sucrose is made up of a molecule of glucose, which does not taste sweet, and a molecule of fructose. But glucose is the bad one because too much glucose is what gives you diabetes, is the one that insulin reacts on. And I just thought of her name. Glucose Goddess is the book she writes. And she is wonderful because she gives you hacks. One way to avoid this in restaurants. Restaurants give you bread first. Why? Because bread turns immediately into glucose. You get an insulin spike, and it makes you hungrier for the food that's coming.
Is that really?
A couple of minutes. Yeah.
I always wondered why they would give us bread because it's free. Why would they want to fill you up? And as soon as, this is my understanding, and please share, as soon as the bread touches your saliva, it's already starting the chain reaction to turn it into sugar.
Absolutely. And then what you should do in terms of, she says, the Glucose Goddess says, what you should do is eat vegetable first and then protein. And by that time, you have so much food in your system, you can have a sweet dessert because it'll slow down the absorption of the sugar and it won't get this glucose spike.
I want to share this because you brought back a memory. This goes back to when I was 30. Never forget it. Didn't know about this whole thing, protein, how important it is. And I would get up in the morning, do morning radio. I'd have that roll with the butter. I have whatever it might be for lunch, a donut, whatever. So one day, all of that followed by dinner at an Italian restaurant, pasta, followed by sweet sugary dessert. Felt okay. Went home, passed out in the bathroom.
Wow.
Actually hit my head on the sink, had glasses on, fell back. Didn't get hurt, but I woke up in, just shakes. Like it was just a shock to my body. Went to the doctor, complete workup. Everything turned out, no, they didn't find anything. And I believe it was because I spiked so high in terms of what we're talking about. And it wasn't long after where I was going fishing with a friend and we stopped at a convenience store and I got a meat sandwich and ate it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better now. Protein. That's what it was, and that's why I was stuck. I've been stuck on protein ever since. But to illustrate your point, I have to believe I must have went so high in glucose and then dropped so fast.
Also, the artificial sweeteners are not good for you. The only thing that is passable is stevia without sugar in it. But the others are really bad for your system. They make you feel like you've had sugar. Also, diet soda is not good for you, and regular soda is definitely not good for you. And the other myth is, caffeine's bad for you. Most of the time, caffeine is good. Coffee is good for you. Coffee has a lot of other molecules in it that are also good for you. But for adults, apparently the current thinking is cow's milk is not good for adults. So they recommend black coffee.
So that's what I drink.
There you go.
Sometimes I'll put a little, just a drop or two of milk in there. Honestly, not even so much for the flavor, just to cool it off because I want to drink it right away.
Yeah, but even, you get used to it. I get used to it. I've had trouble not putting milk in it because I like the flavor of it, but I'm finding out it's not so good for you.
Wow. And this is to your point. Once you get in the habit of these things, I haven't used salt in 50 years. I don't even touch it.
But you need salt.
But it's in everything we eat anyway, typically, unless you're cooking and you need to add a little bit in there.
Over-processed foods.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And a lot of people can't afford to eat natural foods because they're more expensive. They make the over-processed foods cheap, so people will buy them. This is all about money. This isn't about what's good for you. The old diet triangle was promoted by the food industry and not by dietitians. That's why the book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind is so good, because it talks about that. And the book Metabolical talks about it.
How interesting is it that when we're tired, we crave sweets?
Because it gives you a sugar high. And what's a sugar high? It triggers dopamine production, which is what gives us pleasure in sex. It gives us pleasure in all kinds of other things. And it's what makes people addicted to things, dopamine release.
Wow. Is it the same thing? Like, let's say you're not tired, but you just crave, I want that ice cream. I want this. I want that.
That's the sugar addiction.
Okay. Is it doing something with dopamine at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But also it's terrible for you. You find when you don't eat, when I haven't had carbs for like 3 weeks now, but I'm watching it. I'm monitoring it, because you want to be careful. And when you're doing this, you really I want to emphasize, you should get a monitor if you're going to go all the way, and you should learn about this. Don't just jump into it, because it could be dangerous. But I think, I don't remember where it was, but you got to monitor it. And, but it's dopamine, because sugar triggers dopamine, but it also isn't good for you.
How many carbs? What's your intake daily, David? What do you think?
My intake lately, I've been monitoring my glucose and my ketone level, and I'll eat a breakfast like that. I'll order the meat from some place where they have grass-fed animals, and I just eat kosher meat because I was raised that way. But and then I might have late in the afternoon, I might have a can of sardines. Sometimes I might have another meat, like maybe a small steak for dinner, and that's it.
So no carbs here.
No carbs. And what happens after 3 days of very low or no carbs is you realize that you're not hungry. Before, I would be hungry for, I need a mint, or I need something sweet, or I need sugar in my coffee, and that's the sugar addiction. Now you go, I had breakfast early this morning, and I'm not very hungry now at all.
After those the 3 days, what did you feel, during that period?
Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. They talk about the ketone flu. What happens is when your body changes over from burning glucose for energy to burning ketones for energy, you feel a little fluish, which is why you have to do this slowly and take your time. and you should learn about it, which is why I'm recommending these books. And also online, YouTube. Look at the Dr. Boz especially will talk about it. And there are some others. There's a gentleman from Duke University, I think his name's Eric. I'll give it to you to give the audience.
Sure.
Because I don't remember his name, but he said the best way to lose weight is keep your carbs below or at 20 milligrams or below 20 milligrams a day, and you will lose weight. There's nothing tricky about it. There's nothing fancy. Just watch and do it very carefully, and you will lose weight. I've lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks on this diet.
Wow.
And it's mostly fat, because what happens is you also have to work out. Working out is very important, because the most important area of your body is muscles and muscle mass, because that's where you make energy. Mm-hmm. And that's why my doctor wanted me to be on Ozempic, and I didn't want to do it, because I said, one of the side effects of Ozempic, and people don't think about this, is pancreatitis or gastric blockade, which needs surgery sometimes. And pancreatitis is serious, even though it's rare. But I said, I'll try doing it in my diet, and I did.
Did your doctor suggest that because you wanted to lose weight?
I was borderline type 2 diabetic.
Okay.
My AC1 was high, was just on the edge, and I didn't want that either.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's amazing. All of our not all, but most of our health challenges is really coming down to what we eat. We don't realize what's going on there. I have to tell you, David, I didn't know you ran this deep when it comes to nutrition, the psychology of nutrition. Final question, we didn't hit it. Might be rhetorical, but I'm curious.
Sure.
You're walking into the grocery store, organic.
Organic is good, because organic means you don't have a lot of the pesticides. If you can grow your own, it's even better. Sure. It's like this patient of mine this morning was telling me, they grow some fruit in their backyard. They live out in Jersey. And he said, I look at the fruits I grow, or my wife grows in the garden, and they're a lot smaller and not as sweet as what you buy in the market. So twofold, you have less sugar in them, not in organic. In organic, they still may overproduce them, but you don't have the pesticides. So you're right. Organic is better if you can afford it. But if you can't afford it, there are cuts of meat you can get that are less expensive. But you also have to know that a lot of times hot dogs have sugar in them.
Wow. Along with every other chemical under the sun.
Well, some of them don't have chemicals. I was ordering from this place called Grow and Behold and online. And I thought, I could get hot dogs from there and I'd be fine, because they don't have a lot of other things in them that might not be good for you. But I looked at the ingredients, they have sugar in them. So I said, no.
I was not aware of that. And when I was a kid, I was the fat kid that got bullied. All I ate was hot dogs, bologna, milk, and anything Hostess. I'm not exaggerating. That pretty much, that was my kid diet. And
that's why you were a fat kid.
100%.
Also, if, there are a lot of fat kids nowadays, and the reason is overprocessed foods. Yep. Because parents have trouble, unless they really know about this, of telling their kids, no. They'll say, they'll grow out of it. They won't grow out of it. There are now a lot of kids with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah. Yeah. And parents, busy and just want their kids to be happy. So it's like, I'll get it for you. At least you're eating. We're out of time today. Wonderful, David, talking about this. Learned a lot. And it also backed up, some thoughts I had, and I'm sure others have had, about what's out there, our food chain, and how it affects us psychologically. How do we find you? What's the best way?
Best way is call my office, 212-529-2733. I will get back to you. Or my website is creativehealingpsychiatry.com. And you can go on there and you can contact me through there. And I'm happy to hear from people. And I will talk to you for 5-10 minutes. And if you want to make an appointment, I also do ketamine assisted psychotherapy, which helps enormously for various types of psychiatric diagnoses.
Your practice includes the word creative, and now I see why, after today's talk, how there is creativity in terms of your life, your diet. Just get a little creative and get healthy at the same time. Thank you so much for being here today, and looking forward next time we catch up.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.